Hello, everybody. Good evening, good morning, good everything. This is Rick introducing the start of episode number 34 of Bongversations with Dave J, the legendary Arizona wizard, um, the, the man who knows the numbers and the colours and the tones, and he's in the background right now. And so this is episode number 34. This is the 1st of June, which is a number 7. So it's a double 7 episode. And Dave, how are you? Good evening.
Well, I was thinking it's just so happens to be the 31st on this side, and it's going into the first. So I wanted to talk about the three and the four, the idea of ring, the three, what we talked about last week, where it becomes the present details, and into the four, the dalet, so where it becomes part of the mind, and how that then works in how you can use that. So meaning that you can look at all this news and the events of the so-called history, and you can look at war, and you can see all this stuff as nonsense and a hoax. So then what? That's the next question. So then what? So then what is that you see, or you can just identify the so-called magic that's being used to deceive the masses. Because if then you can explain or show what that is, what's being used upon the masses to hypnotize them, quite literally hypnotize them, then they, because somebody will not leave that world unless they want to, unless they make an active choice to call out and to answer
Get out.
that knock. Yeah, to answer that knock on the door. So when Christ knocks, go ahead and answer. That's like knocking on like a dummy's head, like it's a wooden head. Tuk, 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 tuk. So yeah, you're playing the dummy. Knock, knock, knock. So Christ is knocking. The idea is knocking. It's like, do you want the truth? I can come in there and tell you, or are you going to continue to push it away and fall for the chaos magic which this place entails? So that's that 7-7 interchange, and we've talked about that before on really all the 7, the 21, the 28, any type of representation of 7, you're going to have the same interchange to where that choice is being made. Are you deciding on this mindset? So it's like so if you were to take, for example, a magic square, which is how this chaos magic will work, it would be a 4 by 4. So you have 4 squares across, and 4 down, and then of course, so you have 16 cells, and within those cells, you just put the numbers 1 through 16. However, you have to arrange them to where in all directions they're going to add up to 34 or 7. The reason that is because then when you make connections between the numbers, if you're then a caster of a spell. Now this is stuff that we're talking about, the Lesser Key of Solomon and books like this, because this is what's really is demonology, or what is these spells are not being cast from men in robes, at little secret meetings. These are being cast by spiritual entities or the remains of the so-called giants So then these are being cast into the air. Man, the human man or woman, is not in Christ, meaning that they are of the world, are free then to receive these thoughts and ideas, and then their body is like a mannequin, manifest and put into motion in this physical space to put these ideas out, and then they become the spokesman. Think of it as any one of these characters that you want: the Musk, the Trump, all of them, because they become a face to an idea, but the idea is well beyond them. They're just simply a face that has nothing to actually do with it. It's
they're broadcasting, casting a spell, broadcasting to you.
Broadcasting. Yeah. So you're then the broad, the idea of broadcast, but also the idea of the fallen mind as being the Eve, or the woman mind, or think of it as the spiritual homosexual, the effeminate male spirit, meaning that while, and this would be a male or a man or a woman in mind, meaning that they're either thinking logically or they're thinking with emotion, one or the other.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
and so it's because you can have and most of the men you will run into, whether they be in advertising, on radio, sports casting, uh, those that will claim to not know or to come from nothing, um, they are those that have that effeminate spirit in them. You can hear it in their voice. You
Yeah.
can hear the
Oh, yeah, the
inflection
voice
in
is
their voice.
the voice is an
Yeah,
absolute key to so
yeah,
much, especially for me. I've always gone with what there's some people I cannot listen to, and I say
yeah,
that's because of
yeah.
the voice, and I can hear something else in that voice.
And yeah, and
Uh,
that's something else is that animated spirit. So then these magic squares, and this one's important because this is 34 magic square, the 4 by 4. And that's the 16. And guess what? 16 equals 6 plus 1 equals 7. And also, yeah, bump bump. And then also, if you take the 16 uh, times 7, you get 112, which is again your 4, your dalet, 3 into 4,
yeah,
3G7. So you see that everything. If you pay attention to the numbers, tones, and colors, it's all painting an image that then you will consume and then assign to the grid or the magic square that you already have ready, because
yeah,
especially if you already believe an idea is true, then the next 7 that goes out in the news story, bing, is going to have another set of numbers hidden in random words that don't really matter. They're just all details. But those numbers then go into your mind, and yet you have the next block that you've added to that idea. So the more you so-called learn about it, then everybody's in trouble because nobody's going to say anything to you. Because no, I know, I looked up that, the Millennium Falcon has a certain turbo,
yeah.
Yeah, you like
It's so much of us until you
yeah,
wake up and get
yeah,
your revelation or whatever has been
yeah,
influenced by your parents, their parents, and their
yeah,
parents before them. Who,
yeah.
when you're a little, you soak in everything in the beta. You're basically like a
Hmm.
little recording thing, and everything your eyes and ears hear stays into you unless you manage to jump out or knock on that door and ask to get out of it.
Right, right.
So
And,
yeah,
or simply just be silent. Stop trying to figure it out. Stand before God naked, spiritually, and just listen. That's all. Just
yeah.
just stop trying to force it. He'll come to you. So then I wanted to show this interesting fact about this, because we're speaking about the 34 and how it's the idea that now you're past the 33, which is the present, which is the physical world and all the stuff that you saw that has to happen manually, and now you're up into the spirit. Now you're into revelation. So then you're familiar with the Fibonacci sequence.
I am
And
absolutely.
yeah, so if you have 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. Now 34 from the 0 point or creation of that sequence is the 10th spot. That's the IO. Do you see how the
I
7
yep, yep,
becomes
yep,
the IO? So
yep.
then what mind, and now this is where Lucifer Press and all this comes into it, and how or why the Masons will show you the 3, the G, the 7, and how the Aleister
Theosophists,
Crowley
the same
character.
thing.
Yeah, well,
Theosophy, etc., etc.
Theosophy will also tell you this, and we'll get into kind of more of those powers as well. But what happens is this sequence. So even if the Fibonacci sequence shows you the same pattern I've been telling you about, it's right there in front of you, and yet you will have some who still fight the numbers, the tones, the tunes, as if it's an opinion. It's simply just an observation that anyone can make. If you count the numbers and you see these same continued numbers, know that then that is within the matrix a node, a place of entry. that if you go into it knowing where you're going, you will not be fooled by it. Because if you go into it any other way, you'll be discombobulated, or you'll be fooled. You won't know your 0 point. So
Yep.
with any thought, especially knowing the source that you're getting it from. If they lied to you yesterday, don't trust them today. Just go with that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Just go
Yeah.
with that. Let them prove themselves to you again before you ever listen to them. Because otherwise, you're becoming the Groundhog Day victim. You're now suffering your own foolishness over and over and over again. So you're your own worst enemy, because somebody else is not wasting their time on your mistakes or on your misthoughts. They're not worried about it. They're doing their own thing. So it's only you
Yep.
that winds up wasting your time. So with this 34 character, or you have you have the 3 and the 4, and you have Saturn. Let's say if you're dealing with magic squares, this doesn't quite line up the same as if you're dealing with the so-called space planets. This is something complete. This is if you're dealing with magic squares and Solomon's the book of Solomon. So this would be more Kabbalah type stuff. Saturn
Yep.
would be the 3 square. The 4 square relates to Jupiter. Now you know Jupiter, because Jupiter is the one that was made famous in Space Odyssey
2001: Space Odyssey.
2001. Yeah.
They
Uh-huh.
apparently changed it from Saturn, which was Saturn in the original novel. So they
Mm-hmm.
changed it to Jupiter for the book because they
Yeah.
couldn't fake the Saturn rings properly. Apparently, that's their
Or
story. I yeah.
or or
Or
to illustrate the 3 and the 4, which we just talked about. Saturn
yeah,
being the 3 and Jupiter being the 4, and we're talking about 34. That's so
fantastic.
so they're gonna always they're gonna give you like the dummy line. Here's the dummy line, for the
Yeah,
knotheads.
yeah, yeah.
So they can knock you on your, but then you're like, oh, wait a minute, wait, I know this is because I've read the little lore and the stories. So then I know what you're actually talking about is magic squares, and you're talking about the 3 by 3 magic square, which is Saturn, which has the 9 cells, or you have the 4 by 4 magic square, which is 16 cells. Think about being held, but relates to Jupiter.
Mm, mm.
All
That's a
right.
good wordplay there. Good wordplay.
Yeah.
Cells and cells. There's
Yeah.
two different
Yeah.
meanings for that one word. If it says this,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to quote you. If it sounds like it, it is it.
Yeah. It
If
is
it
it.
sounds like it, is it? Yeah.
Now think of these magic cells or these magic squares with the cells internally as, now you have 16. If I insert one of these into your mind, I have now 16 cells within that one to give you little sub stories.
Yeah.
Right. So now if you start following, let's say, whatever, the space hoax or whatever else, now then you have all those extra little pockets or space within the framework of that idea, because all of these ideas take up space in your mind. And what happens is it's going to create it's going to create an actual square or a void, a gap. So then when you hear the ideas of mind the gaps, the ideas of these places which are set aside because you've decided you need to think about that, or that's something I'm interested in. Thus, your mind sets that space aside, and it's not going to be used for anything else until it
Yeah.
gets filled with whatever nonsense you want to fill it with, or you discard it, or you say,
Yeah.
enough of that. Clear the mind.
Get behind
Clearinghouse.
me.
Remember, yeah,
Get
get behind
thee
me, Satan.
behind me.
Get behind me, Satan. Satan, the idea of saying
Say
the idea.
10, say 10, 10, 10,
Yeah,
10, IO. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that Fibonacci sequence, the first 10 ending with 34 or the 7, you can then take that before it compounds to 55 to 89 and on. You stop it right there and toss it. Right. So
Yeah.
and that's whether it's being voiced to you in the physical space, through radio, through TV, through another person standing across from you, or in the spiritual space, meaning these ideas coming into your head.
Thought
They
form.
that Yeah, all forms. So
Yeah.
then, so now that you know and you can recognize in a physical place, the Fibonacci sequence, and now assign it to what we've been talking about. Now you can actually visualize what a thought is. And now you know how a thought is
Interesting.
formed.
Interesting that, to tell a lie is a fib, and it's a
Yeah.
Fibonacci
Yep.
sequence. So there's a bit of a there with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can decide to take control of your yourself, your creation, your being, or you can let the world run you around like a like a dummy, and then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when they come knocking? When they come
Mm-hmm.
for you?
Well, yeah, what you gonna do when they come for you? Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So
Yeah, good stuff, man. It's good,
yeah,
good, 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 good stuff. Straight into the
yeah,
bat. You're knocking out of the park again, Dave.
yeah. So I was thinking about the within, and I want to get back to two things, just really briefly touch the three and the four in a way that the three is the first moment. So then it's the thought, it's the light, whether it be truth or fiction, and it becomes, meaning that it becomes powerful to the point of capture, meaning that you think of, I always make it a butterfly in art form. The butterfly that now is you start to flutter around looking for details to consume, right? And then
Very
of course,
powerful logo in the
yeah.
esoteric as well, of course. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because guess what? Because you can kind of see, if you look at a butterfly, you can see an elongated top and a teardrop bottom 8 within the wing
Yeah. They've
structure.
also,
Yeah,
the wing structure is 2 3s, isn't it?
yeah,
The reverse three. Yeah.
sure
Yeah.
is.
100%.
Yeah,
Mm.
and
It's,
then the
it's there in
four.
nature.
Oh,
It's there
go
in
ahead. Oh,
nature
yeah.
telling you what.
Well,
Yeah.
just like if you look at a salt flat or a drat or the leaf vein pattern on a leaf or a
Yeah.
bee's wing, all of those represent the plane. They're all showing you a level plane. So the earth, whether it be salt flats or dry mud flats, or the bee's wing or the leaf on the tree, will all show you the same, planal structure, and thus you know where you're at because you've tested it by observation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'll put some pictures up now. Now that we're talking about this, is about 11 minutes after, so I'll try to put them in the right spot in the video. But you'll see when you look at all these different, uh, when you look at creation just in an observational point, you're going to see what's already going to tell you what the state and nature of the ground you walk on is, because it's being sung to you by nature itself, who it is. It's like if you just pay attention to what's flying around you, what you're walking under, what you're walking on, you're going to know where you're at simply because it's telling you. So you just have to pay
if
attention.
if your eyes if you've got
Yeah.
your eyes open, that is,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that got them
Mm-hmm.
wide open, but they're wired shut, not wide
Yeah.
shut, wired
Yeah.
shut.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you have to want to know this. So then we're talking about uh so the four now, the dalet, the mind or the door, knock, knock, knock. The four is the point of invested time, and that's whether it be seconds, minutes, hours, months, years, or almost your entire lifetime. The idea of people who are still looking into 9/11, or still looking into JFK, or still looking
Mm.
into
60 years, 60
yeah,
something years now,
they
60
they've
for
spent a
JFK. There's an awful lot
lifetime.
of them out there. And
Yeah, they
you had
spent
a
a
run in with one of
lifetime.
them. You
Yeah.
had a run in with one of the biggest ones.
Oh,
60
oh,
years of
yeah.
Fetzer.
Oh,
60
Fetzer, yeah.
years or plus, yeah, 60 something years now of just the same story over and over and over again.
Oh
That's
yeah, he
the
folded like a
Kennedy.
cheap suit. I tell you what happened was he called me, or somebody had talked to him, and he sent me an email. He's like, "Hey, do you want to be on the show? This is Jim." I said, "Sure, this is no problem." I said, "Do you know who I am?" Because I don't
No,
think
I
he
don't
did.
think so. I
And I
don't
sent
think
you,
so.
and I sent him a link to my videos, which he never watched, because the day we did the interview, we get on early, and he's talking to me. So yeah, tell me something about yourself. And I said, oh, I was in the Navy for 10 years. I did photolithography for this, that. I did sputter vacuum. Oh, okay, yeah, great. You're a vet, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, let's start the show. So then he comes in with the most ridiculous song you ever heard. That was the first thing that annoyed me. And then the second thing was he just starts rattling, oh, so this is Dave. He was in the Navy and blah, blah, blah. You know, and probably be for
He
life.
still will be
And,
for life.
yeah, and
That's
we have him
the
here.
Billy Joel
We
song.
have him in. Yeah, we have him in for
The
the
piano
show.
man.
And he was said, you know, just let him go, let him talk. So then
Well,
I said, so you studied, and I went into him on war. Then I went into him on JFK. And then I ended it with Essence, which I thought was the best ending because I brought two hard punches, left, right. And then I like laid him down gently. Third topic, which was Essence. You know, he was out already. And so I laid him and here's a little
I don't
side.
think he knew what hit him. I don't think he knew what hit him, Dave. I've listened to that a couple of times, and yeah, the left right hook, and
Yeah.
boom.
And here's a little something that you might not notice if I didn't tell you during the interview. Close to the beginning, you'll see him kind of towards the camera trying to fiddle with his keyboard. And what he's doing is he's trying to shut me down or shut me off. And what you'll see is I lean into the camera and I told him, I said, you're not shutting me off. I commanded him. I commanded the demon in him. I said, you're not going to do that. And then you see him, he leans back and he folds his arms.
Yeah. Oh, he
Yeah,
knew.
yeah.
He'd opened his jaw, his chin right for the uppercut because it was going to come.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so for those who are paying attention, you'll see that you can control the you have to just do it. You can't be hemming and hawing. You have to make notice. You're like demon. You stand behind me.
Yeah.
And you have and so yeah, he folded like a cheap suit on that. But the essence idea is the idea of the fingerprint. I've talked to you about that before, which is why that when someone touches you, you have a feeling from it, good, bad, or indifferent. You also, when someone makes something for you, not with their bare hands, whether it be a cookie or a sandwich, and you consume them, their essence, if your mother makes it, that's why.
And that's really interesting. It's not a parable, but it's truth that
yeah.
your mother's bread or your grandmother's bread will always taste way better to you thanks to essence going into the
because you consume them.
Yep.
And that's why, and that's what's really boring about most intellectual thought in this place is it's very low level, because it's like when they're talking about Christ and the bread, saying, oh, they go to this cannibalistic idea. It's like, no, if I touch this, if I break this bread for you, I've left through my fingerprint my essence. And when you eat it, you've consumed my essence. Thus, what I have, you now have in you.
Got hijacked by the Catholic Church and their Eucharist.
So then all meaning is completely lost. And in fact, if you look at James 1 verse 23-24, this is really demonstrates most of the characters you'll run into. It says, anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his own face in the mirror, and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets who he is.
Yeah.
So then
that's so true. You got to know who you are.
Yeah.
If you don't know who you are, you're just
or then it's like, if I heard you say something yesterday and you knew something yesterday, why is it that you're acting today, or you're acting when you're talking with this person, that you don't know that? Because that then means to me, because I know you know it, because I heard you say it, that you're a liar. And that's a tough word for people to take. You know why it's tough? Because it's true. Because it's not hemming or hawing. It's because when anybody is not true to what they know to be true, they are in fact lying. They first do it to themselves. However, when they vocalize it, they then do it to others. And guess what that's called? That's called murder. That's called spiritual murder.
So Okay, so yeah, a lot of people kind of get lost on that. It's your favourite term,
Yeah.
but a lot of
Well,
people don't comprehend exactly what you're talking about, and that's you just
yeah.
explained it
Hmm.
perfectly. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, and let's keep going a little.
keep going,
Wanted
man.
I wanted to continue about kind of the relationship with now you're this magic square that been cube brick, the cube brick,
Cube brick.
the Mason. So
Interesting,
the
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, so
Interesting.
the
We just talked
Mason.
about 2001:
Oh, good.
Space Odyssey and the cube brick
Yeah.
influence there.
So then you have the Jupiter introduction, but also Jupiter relates to Shiva. Now we've talked about Shiva before as the destroyer, the transformer, the idea of change. Now, also within the whole story of 2001 is that of change, and that Hal 9000, Hal 9000,
Yep.
because if you think of Hal, you have so basically an AI robot who goes
Mm,
sideways, right?
yep.
And HAL 9000, if you take the 9 and convert it to an I, it's Hali, Hali, which is in the Greek the sea. This in
Wow.
meaning
Fantastic.
the SEA, but however we know that the beast comes from the
See.
sea, SEA.
Yeah.
However, also if it sounds like it is it sea.
Is it? Yeah. See.
So the sea. So then Halley is from the sea, therefore.
And C becomes the 3 as well.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. 3G7. So it's always right there in front.
Only if you
So
can, only if someone like you tells you that, though, Dave. It's quite, I like to say, it's uncomplicated if someone explains it to you,
right.
um, and you can kind of get it. But keep going, man.
Well, yeah, so you have Hal 9000 who now has introduced himself as this helpful, I can do everything for you, I keep you going. However, he's the Janus character as well. Now related to Jupiter is Janus. Janus is the two-faced man
It's
or
Janus, Janus.
yeah,
Yeah,
correct. Yeah.
yeah,
So he's
yeah,
like he's the one who initiates. So think of an INI file. An INI file is a Janus. It can do this or that. So then he's now assigned. So Janus initiates. So then that's going to be the Hal character. He's the two-faced character because the Jupiter is going to be letting out the monoliths. So it's actually the one has to happen so that the other can. Because
yeah,
Jupiter is really the culmination or the grandeur of a project when Janus is meant to be the initiator of the event. See how
yeah,
so they've taken different modes of thought, even and it's better explained in computer theory, but they've taken modes of thought and they've just assigned it to these god and goddesses characters. But
yeah,
what these characters are doing, Rick, are actual steps in the formation of a thought. And that's what we're deconstructing, or we have been since this show started.
yeah. And also, I just have to just pop into my head. Then
Uh,
we had those 3 big shows of the '60s that were like in your face, pushing space.
yeah.
Um, I Dream of Jeannie,
Mm-hmm.
Bewitched for the witchcraft side of it and the
Yeah.
advertising, which is going into your brain. But also Lost in Space, the
Yeah. Yeah.
spacecraft was Jupiter, the Jupiter
Mm-hmm.
that they were on. So what you're saying now feeds in with that
Oh
you
yeah,
had to
for
know,
sure.
and you were going to get lost in space. This is
Yeah.
NLP. It's like it was a spell, was abracadabra. I speak
It's
as I create. You lost
yes.
in space. It's coming. You're going to get lost in space, non-stop,
Yeah, yeah.
non-stop, and you did.
Yeah, and it's also if you remember Hal when he sleep, because he's going to come back later, of course. But when he's being put to sleep, he sings a song called Daisy Bell. Yeah.
Daisy, Daisy, give me an
Yeah,
Uncle Pooh. Yeah,
Daisy
yeah,
Bell.
yeah.
And
And
what's
it's funny, it's
interesting,
Dave. It's funny your name's
Dave,
Dave and
Dave, don't do
Dave
it.
Bowman.
I'm gonna let him. Hal, I'm gonna let him know. So then, what you have within in so that you can know who Hal is, and not what he says he is, but by what's in the words he speaks. So he sings Daisy Bell as kind of his last rites, really.
Yeah.
Based or biased is an anagram to Daisy Bell. Biased because he is biased not towards the crew. He was biased towards the ideals of Jupiter, which he was actually working towards the whole time. So the so-called crew were just expendable, appendages. They had nothing to do with what he was. Because he's the Janus character. He's two-faced.
Two-faced.
See?
The same,
Yeah.
and it's the same thing. You had Dr. John, Dr. Smith on Lost in Space,
Yeah.
very two-faced. He's always the two-faced. You didn't know he was a good guy or a bad guy. He was actually the bad. Well, you couldn't tell, but he was the
Right.
two-faced person on board the Jupiter.
For sure.
It always ties back into mainstream media and pop culture. There's so much was being put into your heads while you were little kid sitting at home watching I Dream of Jeannie, watching NASA non-stop logo of NASA all through I Dream of Jeannie.
Right.
And trust Major Nelson. Major Nelson is fantastic, and etc. Yeah. So sorry, I'm just having
Well,
to button
yeah,
into it.
yeah. So if you follow the so-called Fibonacci sequence, you have this zero, which is you sitting there relaxing, chilling out. Then you have
Yep.
the one, which is an idea presented. One becomes the two, which is the concern. Now all of a sudden somebody said, "Hey, they landed on the moon." You're like, "What?" That's two.
What?
Three
Yeah.
is the idea. Now you're like, "What?" And then oh, man landed on the moon. Now you have this idea that man landed on the moon. And now you've allowed that into you. Guess what? The Fibonacci sequence moves to 5, which is your senses. From your
Boom, boom, boom,
senses,
boom.
it moves to 8, which is the details, because your senses now crave the details. Then guess what? It goes to 13, which is your crown or your corona, which guess what? 13 reduces to 4, which again allows you back in the door. And guess what you keep
Yeah.
doing? You keep eating your own tail, because that's your back door, sport. They done popped your trunk. They manually popped your trunk, and they just
You got probed. You got
yeah,
probed,
you got
buddy.
probed, man. The alien got you, man. It's like because when that first one came through, when they say man landed on the retort, there is no moon. It's a light in the sky. Yeah, done. See,
Yep.
and you knocked it off. It's like whack-a-mole. Because this realm is going to present to you all day, every day, if you engage with
The
silly
same
ideas.
thing. Yeah.
Silly ideas. They're going to
Yep.
Jupiter is leaving out all those monoliths or ideas.
Yep. It was
Do you
on the
remember
moon
the
too
end?
when
What
they
was
found it.
happening?
They found the monolith on the
Yeah.
moon, didn't they? In that
Well,
thing.
yeah,
So
but
yeah.
do you remember at the very end when the eye of Jupiter collapsed and all the monoliths started coming out?
Yep.
I mean, untold numbers of monoliths. That's the idea of a demonic invasion, of just ridiculous nonsense ideas. And I would suggest you could look around and see, whether you look through pop culture, music, movie, TV, you can see how all these fallen ideas have already taken hold and have changed the
Well, the
landscape
whole of culture, the whole
of
culture,
all culture. Yeah.
yeah, culture, yeah, absolutely,
So
completely
then,
taken over.
and remember, we talked about the monolith, the monolith hotel that stands at the ground zero in New York.
What a
It,
coincidence, Matt. What a
because the
coincidence,
monolith,
Dave.
even in the movie, is a standing witness.
Yeah,
It's representing just like the so-called obelisks that are around the so-called plane.
representing,
They represent a standing witness.
representing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. They represent a standing witness.
yep.
Therefore, it's to those that know, they know that they're not going. For most men and women, act as if they're going through life with none of this being recorded or having it being, because it most certainly is. And the only way that you don't have it type of management phase is to answer the call of Christ. And then you freely get the mind of Christ. Thus you get revelation and you leave the world. And guess what? While you remain here physically you're here. Spiritually, you're not here. The place doesn't exist. You exist in it, but not for it. And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
because if all the light was taken out of this world, well, how dark would it be?
extremely dark.
Yeah. So then what are you going to listen to? You're going to listen to all these jibber jabbers talking about nonsense. Same thing.
Or 60 years of JFK, and now we're 20, was it 9/11? So we're 24 years, which is number 6, into the 9/11 myth. Yeah.
Because what if then I told you, and this is true, that in order to show you something else, you first need to fully grasp. Because unless you know this it's not because you heard me say it or heard anyone else say it. It's because you observed it, you tested it, and you found it to be true. Now you know it. Now you are bearing witness to it. Once that happens, then you're able to see this place differently. But until that happens, as much as I want to tell you more about certain things, you simply just wouldn't know what I'm talking about. Or it might confuse you, or it might turn you away because it might sound too outlandish. So then if I get into the idea of devils and demons, I'm not getting into it just metaphorically. I'm saying that they're there.
No,
And the only reason that you're not seeing the demons right in your face is because you're too asleep. You're not a threat whatsoever. So if you're out there in the world and you're doing the things of the world and you're living for mammon, the demons aren't gonna manifest, and thus you're gonna think that they're all made up. The closer you get to getting out, the thinner the veil gets, and the more, in fact, present they become. And you
Exactly.
actually
And when you
start to
look at
see
their
them.
eyes, look into the eyes, and I would go back to the one to me the corona of all of them the last 5 years ago. Look into the eyes of those health experts that were telling you to do things. Every one of them, it shows in their faces. You will know them to be the liars they are just by looking at them. If what Dave just said, you're awake and you understand, you will see it. If the veil's been lifted, you will see the faces and know them to be what they are: demons, disembodied, using
disembodied spirits, man.
Yeah, and they've entered into their golems. There's golems everywhere.
The golems everywhere.
Yep.
Well, these are the people who think that these are the people of Genesis 4, and they are
Genesis 4.
They're children of Satan. Now, speaking of 34, there's two words which show up 34 times in the Old Testament. The word Beersheba shows up 34 times, and I find that interesting because that's a place of 7 wells.
Beersheba.
Beersheba. 7 wells,
which became modern Israel. Israel was Beersheba. Yeah.
So with the 7 wells. Now here's the thing with that, as you know, that the Old Testament is dealing with the Yahweh, the Satan.
Yeah.
So then let's look into the New Testament and see if there's a name that many times. And guess what? Satan is used 34 times.
Wow, far out, man. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So then it's
all in the numbers, man. And I'm saying it's all in the numbers. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Did you go through and count every one of them, or
you can use a program. You can use a program to do it, but you have to. It's just like anything else. You have to get the right thing to do. It's like if you program a computer, it depends on what you put into it, what you're going to get out. So there's
positives to some of these AI programs. There's no doubt whatsoever. There are positives there, but I'm very wary about some of the negatives. There's a lot of negatives to go with those positives.
Well, yeah,
But if
but
you
here's the
use, you
thing,
can
Rick.
use. uh,
Oh, here's the thing, Rick. Before you go on, let's just talk about the positive, because like the negative, you're not going to do anything about, really. I mean, let's
No, it's
be
true. Yeah.
honest.
Oh,
So
look, I
so
agree
the
with that.
positive aspects, what can you do? What can you do with it?
Well, you can
Because
just do what you just you said. You can
yeah,
find out how many times was
yeah,
34. How many times Bathsheba used, or
yeah,
what words used 34 times in the
yeah.
KGV, which would be the King James version, I would guess, of the
Correct.
Old Testament. Yeah, in the
And do
Old
you know
Testament.
why? Because the KJV is the script, the scripture actually, script meaning it's sure to happen because it's going to be made to happen. So
Yeah,
like I tell people, if you're going to be in the audience watching the play, don't fight with the program. Just watch it, just observe it. You're not going to change the script. The script is
no,
sure. So if you look at Beersheba 34 times, what then is the tone of those 34 instances? And what you're going to find out when you read them is that it's going to be uh, a coming together of terms between God and man, or coming to agreement, or coming to the well meaning a place of mutual need, the well, the
yeah,
water. Now, here's the
yeah,
thing though. The Old Testament's offering water that doesn't last. And now the 34 times in the New Testament are
yeah.
same water. And then what does Christ say? He offers to the woman at the well, you you will not
No, we're not
see
first.
how.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he offers it. So you see, if you pay attention by the codes, whatever you want, however you want, then you're going to actually see that there's a rhyme and a reason, and
yeah.
that there's a lesson there. So then what is it? So then you have all these of always led. They always led to false
I just have
promise.
to mention you're clipping a
Oh,
bit, Dave. So
oh,
either closer or further. One of the but whenever as soon as I say it, it comes back normal. But I
oh,
just
okay.
noticed a fair bit of what you just said before got clipped.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
repeat thyself.
Yeah. So I was saying, if you pay attention then to the tone of the scripture, especially with the Beersheba, and then
Yeah,
also Sheba, how it sounds like Shiva. The idea we
very
already
much
talked
so,
about that.
Dave.
Yeah,
Very much so. Yeah.
and also
You know,
beer is quite the destroyer as well. So but not
allegedly
beer.
created in Egypt.
Yeah,
Allegedly created in Egypt. Allegedly.
but then the beer side, instead of looking at it just as a simple lager, something simple, think of it as the idea of a spirit. So
Yeah, exactly.
it goes beyond beer. It's going to the idea of a spirit destroyer.
Yeah,
So that's the well stories of those of in the Old Testament. They're spirit destroyers, because
yeah,
they're being offered sanctuary with a God who's a liar, this Yahweh
yeah,
character. Then in the New Testament, this same character, who's known as Satan, same guy, same character, is offered to you 34 times in the singular, meaning that it's of that, not of, speaking of his minions, but him, of the Satan, saying the false input output, offering one thing or another. See, still
hmm
more of that false hope and that false water, which is still offered today through his minions, or those
yeah.
that act, ACT. That's why it's called a book of Acts. Right? So nobody, it's people, man and woman have not stopped acting since the beginning. So you go
Interesting,
out.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's very interesting because
yeah,
we're our totally satanic
yeah.
design, Masonic design. Canberra in Australia is designed built on a basically always they always build them on swamplands. These big
Uh-huh.
cities, but it's called ACT, Australian Capital Territory. So ACT
Hmm.
is in our the area of Australia that runs all our political
Yeah.
shenanigans is
Hmm.
ACT. Mm,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hey, so if you're looking then also, and we were talking earlier about the King Solomon character, and he had this book of 72 demons. Which, guess what? Those Muslim characters out there, those 72 so-called virgins, those are
Sacred virgin.
demons. Those are demons. They're the same
Oh, look,
72 that
yeah,
I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, there's no doubt on that coincidence
Yeah,
as being
yeah.
100% correct, Dave.
It's like this. Well, guess what? The 34th is named Furfur. Fur. Furfur. Now, what's interesting about Furfur is a stag, or can present as a stag, like a deer horn. So you'll see like golden schlager. There's certain alcohols that will have the stag head as
Yeah,
as
well, it's
a
in Australia, the beer, one of our biggest beers called Tui's, and its
uh,
logo is the stag's head.
okay.
And
Well,
there's
that's
also a beer called
oh,
Fur Fee, which is fur as well. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So both of those are representing this demon Furfur. Now we've already talked about. Remember when we talked about Beersheba, the false hope or false idea? Beer more meaning more as fermented spirits, right? So the
yeah,
spirits idea. So if you then are consuming a spirit, then don't be surprised when the spirit consumes you. All right. So
yeah. Well,
so
that feeds right in with so much, particularly alcohol and the whole
yeah.
the alchemical thing of alcohol,
Think of Rolo.
oils.
Think of Rolo.
Yeah,
How
exactly. Oh,
Rolo
it's a
is
great example. Great
from one
example.
point,
Yeah,
and then he gets on the vodka, and then guess
and then
what?
boom,
Boom. He's a different. That
he gets
spirit.
taken
Yeah.
over by
Yeah.
this angry,
Mm-hmm.
bitter hatred
Mm-hmm.
thing that comes over. Yeah, it's the same with anyone that has got a
Yeah.
high high usage of this type of vodka,
Who's going to tell you
rum.
the truth? Drunks and children, huh? So
Yeah, yeah,
so
it's true. That
yeah.
is true.
Yeah.
But
So
fantastic. Hey, that's
this
really fantastic. You're nailing it all again, Dave. I have to just before tell you
yeah,
that you're doing a good job.
and also know that Furfur is a character or the demon of unpredictable or destructive power or storms. So then
Oh,
so this
we know about that here.
yeah, so you know about that, and also mental storms, a sudden change of attitude, a sudden change of mood. What thought, what idea went into you that caused that change to happen, right?
Mm,
Because he's also a mender of relationships. This is where it's important because it's the orders out of chaos. So when you're looking
yeah, order out of
at
chaos.
at what at what aspect of the Satan character, because they're all one, but these 72 are like manifestations of personality. So if you look at this particular one, this manifestation of Fur, which is the 34th manifestation, or he serves as like a mediator in a way. So this is what you see in the so-called modern world, or even through so-called history, as being diplomacy.
Yep.
And also Fur is Fuhrer, Fuhrer, like the idea of Nazi Fuhrer.
So we got
Yeah,
Fuhrer, and we got
yeah,
the
yeah,
Fuhrer, then we
yeah,
got the furries. That's a new big thing,
yeah.
this
Furries,
new
yeah.
trends thing, furries. Now I'm going to have to reiterate there that the beers that we're talking about beer and Beersheba.
Uh-huh.
There are all the beers have these logos. And in New Zealand, we've got DB, which is 42 as well, but it's
Mm-hmm.
Dominion breweries, and we've got Lion breweries, Lion, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're all using that logo of the stag's head, though. A lot of them on
Yeah.
their logos.
Yeah.
Furphy being one of the latest ones.
Yeah.
Interesting,
So that's
very good stuff, though. Very good
yeah,
stuff,
so that's
and
Furfur. And
fascinating.
also you'll love this. He also likes to be known as Earl.
Duke of
E
Earl.
A R L. Yeah, Duke of Earl.
Mm,
Also ear L. You see how if you
yeah,
separate
yeah,
the ear, so you're
yeah.
listening. Ear L. All right. And
And
also
L
you can
God,
hear you,
L
you
being God as
hear
well.
L or bell. Bell.
Baal.
Yeah.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good
So
stuff, man.
then
This is, I don't think anyone's done any of that. What you're talking about now, I've never heard anyone else bring this stuff up before. So
oh no.
you're leading the pack. I'll just have to say that.
Yeah, so let's kind of I think have we been going for a while? Are we doing
Yeah, we
okay on
have,
time?
but yeah, well, no,
Okay.
absolutely
Yeah, because I have a couple other things kind of.
keep going, man.
Yeah, because if you're gonna, and also here's the takeaway. If you're gonna look into these type of topics, you have to go by the rules of their game, because that when if they're producing the chaos magic, you have to use their scripts, because that's what they're
Yeah,
using to produce it. Otherwise, you're just kind of beating your own drum. So if you look at the Kabbalah's so-called tree of life in the third spot, so let's look at 3 to 4, because that's what we're talking about right now. You're
yeah.
going to have Bina, which is going to be the idea of black. Now, black is not necessarily nothing there. The lights just might be out, you know. So it's just black for right now. Now, 4 is called he said. So Hesed. But if I say it out loud, he said,
He
like
said,
he said
he
that.
said, yeah,
So who said that? He said that. Who said that?
yeah.
So it's like, who did you hear that from? He said that. So it's just it's a sound that you heard, whether it be from a person, and we already talked about this, through a movie, a radio, or something you read. You heard a sound. So he said that. That's also then assigned to what's called mercy. Now, how mercy is not mercy, it might sound to you as like this positive. It might be. However, mercy might just be that you stop before you've completely gone too far, which is mean
Well,
that you didn't inflict any pain, because you did, but you just, so it doesn't necessarily, it's not always, it's a positive to a point, but you have to know the context of its usage. So
yeah.
you see that's why everything is not straightforward. It has to be looked at in the mirror opposite reverse as well. So when you look at something, don't just look at what's presented, look at the intent of the presenter, meaning that the person who presented it
Who
to you, the one,
he said, yeah.
yeah, he said, what
Said,
was
who
his
said, he
intent?
said.
Because
Mm,
guess what? Between the 3 and the 4, you cross over a gap in the Kabbalah tree life. It's an empty space that's not numbered, and it's called death, or Daath, death. So it's a
yeah,
gap, and it's also called get, and like in England and places like that, where they'll say mind the gap, which is the space between the car and the porch. What is it? A porch? What do you stand on before you get onto the train?
exactly,
The
yeah.
the
Uh,
dock? Is it a dock
yeah,
or a? So
yeah.
that between that and the train, it's going to say the gap would be the space between those two. So it says mind the gap, so
E-
you don't get your foot stuck, right?
Even going back into pop culture again, one of my
Yeah.
favourite movies, which I can literally quote from beginning to end, Monty Python, The Holy Grail, directed by Terry Gilliam, and I'm telling you now, that guy stuff, and the bridge of death at the very end of the thing, and there was the
Uh-huh.
gap, the bridge of
Yep.
death, and there was you get to name your favourite colours, and there was, we'll have to talk about that in another
Oh,
show
for
one
sure.
day, but what
Just
you're
from what you
talking about
said,
now,
though,
yeah,
you just go from what you said, though. So what? Tell me about the bridge.
the bridge of death at the very end of the Monty Python, The Holy Grail, they come upon this bridge keeper, and he asks them, you have to answer a question. If you lie, you get hurled over the precipice. There's a very dangerous looking bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and to get across to get to the Holy Grail, they have to answer a question, one question. And he asked, "What's your favourite colour?"
Uh,
And the guy says yellow, and he says, "No, actually it might be blue, 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 blue," and he gets hurled over, just thrown over the bridge.
I
It's
get it now.
we'll have to go and actually just analyse that
Yeah.
movie, because I'm
So
telling you,
you
there's some
notice,
stuff in
right,
there.
right from what you're
Mm.
talking about, you just explained what I just said, that the gap
Yeah,
is talking about death. So it's
death.
between the
Yes,
3 and the
exactly.
4. So the choice then, here's the choice. Because remember, I told you there's going to be a choice with the 34. There's the choice. The choice is, do you answer the door? That's the choice you're going to make.
Yeah.
Because all these ideas are going to knock, and there's going to be
Mm.
one knock that's different than all the rest. That's the
Like
Lord
the
Jesus
Bob Dylan
Christ.
song, allegedly written by him, knocking on heaven's door, and
Yeah.
not 3 times. Like it's in your pop culture.
Yeah, but it's reversed in pop culture, because in the word is,
Inverted,
because
inverted. Yeah,
it's inverted, because the truth is that you can call on Christ all you want. He's got to call you. It's it's
yeah.
it's not it's that
You got
way.
to answer.
He
Yeah, it's right.
calls
Okay,
you,
it's
you
inversion.
answer. Yeah, he calls you, you answer. Because what happens is people want to call on Christ with their luggage, with their spiritual
Yep.
baggage. They still want to carry all the shit. And he's like, nah, you got to come to,
And you can't take it with you.
you
This
got to
is a
stand before
really
God
good. You
naked.
cannot. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't. This is one of the famous things about money. You
yeah.
can't take it with you. You can't take your riches.
Mhm.
You walk out empty, or
Oh yeah.
you walk out spiritually informed, and you open the door and walk out.
Well,
But
that's
you can't take your baggage with you. There's no baggage. There's no baggage check on truth.
it gets dropped in the gap. I tell you, that's just like, yeah, that's the same
Yep.
with the, if people want to look with the rich man and
Yep.
gap is, he said, there's a big gap here you can't get across and we can't get to you. It doesn't matter about if you want to, if you need it, just you can't do it. There is no,
Mm.
and what that means is that there is no relationship between the truth and a lie. And as soon as there's an hypocrisy, it's a lie. So then if you notice that within a person's character, you're done. Just dismiss,
Yep.
because at that point, here's the thing. If they are then that naive or blind to where they think you're that naive and won't notice, then
Mm.
they're disrespecting you. Because if you notice someone's hypocrisy, that's being displayed not for their benefit. It's being displayed for your benefit, so that you can see it, so that you can
Yep.
know who these people are in your life that you're dealing with.
Yep.
So everybody talks for a reason, and you have to take the time to listen so that you know the intent of that caster, because the caster has intention with the words that they cast to you, and as a receiver, once you discern, and you have to discern, once you discern that which has been cast to you, you catch it, then that's the 3-4 interchange. You have to decide if you're going to answer that door or not. Because once you let it in, guess what comes next? Your senses, meaning that your body becomes active in the thought, meaning that
Yep.
you have to now
And
live it.
to discern also,
Mm-hmm.
it's the getaway, like the CERN thing in Switzerland, and they've got
Mm-hmm.
Shiva, as we were just talking about, tying this all up together. Shiva's
Yep.
the giant statue and the gate when you go into the CERN. So discern, get out of, it's telling you to, CERN is a concern, con is always a bad word,
Yeah.
confused, contrived,
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy, bad word,
Mm-hmm.
bad word. But CERN, they named CERN for a really good reason.
Well, CERN
Supposedly.
also, what CERN is I told at one point, but we can go into it more sometime. I
Next
did a
time,
video on
next time.
what CERN is because where ideas come from is the light.
Yep.
So there is an actual process that's happening. It's just not what's being talked about on the so-called conspiracy sites. What's happening though
No,
is what you're
no.
doing is you're hitting light, and all of this is it can happen. You have a vacuum chamber, which is the way you make a plasma to rain metal down onto semiconductors to make these
Yes.
computers we're using right now. So this
Yep.
is how it works. But what happens is you're going to send light down, impact target. Now the target's going to be of a specific metal, whatever the metal's going to be. Now the light that's then the sparks come off there. If you can then
Yep.
discern those sparks are going to, where do you think
Yep.
products come from? That's where all this stuff comes
Exactly.
from. So
Yep.
so then
But
what they're doing is they're just presenting, they're getting, and that's why technology
you're
continue,
clipping,
continue,
Dave.
continue.
Oh, you're
Oh,
better now. You're better.
oh yeah,
You're back. You're back. You're
yeah.
back.
You're just going to see technology continue to be expedited because you're they're discerning more light. That is what
We'll
is
get
called the light of Lucifer. So the CERN
exactly. Well,
chambers. Yeah.
guess what's on the mainstream news. I'm talking about
Mm.
the more elite mainstream news. CERN has apparently accidentally, this is their sort of created gold from lead from bouncing the molecules of whatever. This is on this. I listened to the other day and I thought this has got to mean something. reason why they're telling you this.
Well, that's the holy grail of alchemy, man.
Yeah,
That's like
exactly.
that's the
Exactly. It's
golden
just
ring
tying
right
in with the
there.
Holy. Well, we just tied
Yeah,
in the Holy Grail
yeah,
and CERN, with
yeah,
the Bridge of Death and whatever.
yeah.
Like weird coincidences.
Rainbow Bridge as
Code.
well. And don't some of
Jimi
your
Hendrix did it. Jimi
don't
Hendrix
some of
album as
your
well.
cartoon, because you're into superheroes on one side or the
Oh,
other, and don't some of your characters, doesn't one of them have Thor have a rainbow bridge?
yes, exactly the same thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yep.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
exactly the same thing.
but yeah, that there's a new story that came bounced out of wherever I listened to all the weird stuff I listened to,
Hmm.
that they managed to this is, I said, accidentally create some gold molecules when they were bouncing, doing the CERN trick, con
Hmm.
CERN. I'll say it again, con CERN, and they've bounced because gold and lead are apparently there's a certain amount of molecule or whatever, atoms. They were talking about atoms, I guess. Um, atom, atoms, whatever.
Hmm.
And they created some kind of gold thing. And this is leading into the ancient quest to be able to turn lead into gold, which is all alchemy, yeah.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's on
So then,
mainstream news at the moment, Dave. Mainstream
eh,
news, they're talking about this. Yeah.
yeah. So well, here's the thing. I also notice and see, I'm going to look at. Let's just talk about what we talked about, and then say, look. Let's look at the intent of that story. So now you
Yeah.
have the intent of taking something uh,
Ice.
that's not worth as much, lead, meaning kind
Yep.
of, and just think of it as that, and then turning it into gold or becoming rich overnight. Really,
Yep.
that's
Well,
to become success overnight. So then, what is that doing? But simply, it's massaging the egos of those who are into money or mammon. It does nothing
oh
for
yeah.
me, because to me, it's
No, it
like,
does nothing to me.
yeah,
Can you
yeah,
eat? Look, can you eat gold?
yeah,
Can you boil gold up and make a nice soup out of it?
yeah.
No. A chicken, yeah, absolutely, 100%. Well, chickens to me, Dave, in
Hmm.
my logic, a chicken is worth more than gold. One chicken, it provides eggs, and you can eat it if you have to. But otherwise, you've got eggs. If you had a block of gold in your next life, great big huge block, the biggest block you can imagine, one chicken. What would I prefer? I prefer that chicken. The
Yeah,
chicken
to me,
actually
it's
will
like
give me life.
everything to me, Rick. Everything has its place. That's where, and it's like where the thing with gold though is without gold, platinum,
Can't
on
do
all
that.
these different things, me and you aren't talking right now. So it's like it's
That's
got
true.
its
Yeah, that's
place,
true.
but it's not.
Absolutely.
It's like the idea of wearing it. All that is kind of just the vanity side of it, the vanity because
Well, it's
the
hyper
worth.
exploitation
Yeah,
of
yeah,
a thing. It's hyper
yeah,
exploitation. Like, yeah, gold's got its fantastic
yeah.
benefits. Copper,
Right.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But do you worship it and make it your
Yeah.
god? And would you kill for it and lie for it? No.
Well, that's the thing about the Catholics, the Jews, the Muslims, all of them that have these churches because they live dressed up in dresses. They have
Dressed in dresses,
idols
stupid
all
things
over
on their
the.
head.
They have
Yeah.
idols everywhere. Oh yeah, and they wear cubes on their head.
Mm.
Stand before an unfolded cube with a corpse. They
Exactly.
they 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 spread smoke around in you
Yeah,
know.
they
And
put the
it should be,
incense and the
but
dresses,
but
acorns on their heads.
they're calling these people father and teacher, all of
Oh my God.
is said
Yeah,
not to
Father.
do. It's all said you don't do that. So it's like how can
It says clearly don't do that. Do
yeah
not worship false idols.
well it says not
And
but this is even not
graven images,
I'm going to
graven images,
Jesus Christ's words where he's like don't call anyone father,
yep,
don't call anyone teacher, don't do
or
any of this
mother.
stuff. He's saying all this stuff because the reason is because now you're putting another man or a woman above you and you're
Yep,
not because he says the only teacher you have is Christ. Meaning that if you
yes,
want to know something, ask Christ and it'll be given to you. Because if you ask another man for something, he's going to tell you what he knows. And if Christ, he
yep,
has no choice but to lie to you because he doesn't know any better.
yep.
He knows no better. That's why you say you forgive them, for they know not what they do, because they
Yeah,
literally are
fantastic.
ignorant
Yeah.
by their own choice. But then also, you know this as well as I. You look at online, and the biggest dumbbells, the biggest knuckleheads will have the biggest following of people. The reason why is because they're not there's no pressure put upon them to listen. They're not felt a certain, they don't feel a certain kind of way. They don't feel
Yeah.
convicted. That's the thing. Because when you
Yep.
speak the truth to people, guess what happens? Their conviction is going to be felt by those that do it to themselves. Meaning that
Yep.
the truth doesn't convict anyone. However, when someone hears the truth and they reflect it upon themselves, that one in the mirror, they then convict themselves.
Yep. Yep. The
So
man in the mirror. The
yeah, the man
man
in
in
the
the
mirror
mirror.
convict. Yeah. So that's how that works.
Mm, fantastic. Well, Dave, I think we've
Yeah,
probably.
man.
I don't think we can top what you just talked about. I think you've done it again,
Yeah.
and I'm not joking when I say that last show is good, but this is better. And you've done it again, Dave. You've knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, that was a fun time, man. I enjoyed that.
Really good. Really, I enjoy. Well, I enjoy hearing your um, truth. I can hear by your vocal cords
Right.
the tones of truth, and you believe what you believe what you say what you mean,
And the
and
best part is that it's all testable.
it's testable, and it's actually really testable because
Yeah.
we go back, from beginning to the episode number one
Right.
on Bongversations, which is on truthmeets.com. If you want to hear the full production, truthmeets.com's got the original first 22, and then we've gone at a different level afterwards on Dave J's YouTube. So Dave J YouTube, Google, or anyone that's listening to this would know this. But you've got to listen to the whole package. You've got to go back to number one. If you haven't listened to
Right.
number one, you're missing out on stuff. So
Yeah.
it's on truthmeets.com. And
I'll leave a link too.
you
I'll leave a
do. Oh,
link
you did
coming
the
up.
other. Actually, you did. I said someone come onto your the Discord and said, "Where do I find all the stuff?" And I saw you did it the other day, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So shout out to Joel for he's got it there, and he listened to all those shows. And because
Oh,
I've mentioned a couple of things, and he goes, "Oh, Dave said the same thing." And yes, we talked about it last night. I have to say, I did a
oh,
really good chat with the guy that's on your platform from Canada. What's his name?
Greg?
Uh, Greg Shantz. Greg
Yeah.
Shantz.
Greg
Shantz.
Chance.
Last night,
Chance.
I did a talk about old comics and underground comics with him, which was fantastic on an after show on the truthmeets.com. So if anyone's interested in Mad Magazine, Crack Magazine, and some of the intent that was getting put out to you,
Right.
we actually talked about it. Unfortunately, his microphone was a bit iffy, but it's still some really good stuff got spoken last night. But
Yeah,
he's one of your number one fans, Dave. I would have to say he'd be one of your definitely number one fans.
yeah. He loves it. Yeah, he's comic books, that good.
Yeah,
He knows it. He knows it all on that.
I really enjoy talking
It's
to him.
Greg. It's
Really enjoy.
Greg Shantz, but
Yeah,
in New York, it's Greg Shantz.
chance,
Yeah, that's how they have that annoying. They have that
chance.
annoying voice. Shantz. It's
Yeah,
Shantz to
chance,
others.
chance. Yeah, and I shan't be doing that. But it was a really good conversation, and I hadn't spoken to him properly before, but he knew his stuff, and I love being in a conversation with someone that knows what they're talking about,
Mm,
and so I can bounce off them. And it was good. But, Dave, that was a really good show.
okay.
Episode number 34 on 3 and 4 and number 7. And we went into all sorts of stuff. So I'm really another proud contribution to the internet of things and
Okay.
podcasts. The Dave J's Bongversations 34 may it get to 700 million if
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
really that
Yeah.
many. But I doubt there's that many people that actually can actually understand the stuff. So I'm really happy with you're getting 400 or 500 people listening to these things, which is
That's plenty.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's
That's all
plenty.
you want. I'll be happy
Yep.
with it if it's three of us. And I'll be
Yep.
and I'm telling you, Dave, if it was just me and you talking into the ether,
Mhm.
I'd be happy. More,
Oh yeah, me
same
too.
amount of happiness if I had 8 million people, listening in. But yeah, it was
Oh
really
yeah.
good stuff. We're
Hey,
gonna have a break
let me
next week.
kick the bot out, and then you're taking a break next week, right?
Yeah,
So
break.
no
So
show
we'll be
next
back in
week.
2 weeks. No show next week. We'll be talking in 2 weeks' time. And
You'll be
you
doing
brought up some of the
35.
things, and yeah, well, 35. We'll talk about the bridge and gaps and things like that. I think will be
Yeah, man,
interesting because that archetype is all over the place.
for sure.
But I think we nailed some interesting stuff there, man. So send
Oh
that
yeah.
bot out and
Okay.
see you wonderful people listening to this, listening to some really good stuff. And I don't think there's a lot of other people doing it. I'm going to have to say
Mhm.
that. So Dave
All right.
Dave J, absolute legend in my mind, and
Thank you.
anyone that was listening
A
to mine as
legend in
well.
my
So,
own mind. Yeah.
no, not your own mind, and my mind as well. So you got two. There's two that I know of, and Greg Sharp.
And great chance.
So that's three. That's all we need. The
All
ring
right.
cycle. The ring cycle.
All right.
All right,
Hey,
Dave.
well,
Send that bot out.
cheers, everybody. Talk to y'all soon. Be blessed.
Bye. Be blessed.